No, I don't think that everybody should go with it. It's a technology that requires a problem to be solved. It comes with baggage. It's not free. It's not as scalable as just using like vendors directly. What I do think every company should do is listen to a pitch about it. So have somebody come over and talk about server-side tagging or tracking, and then figure out if this is a right fit. So I think it's such an interesting piece of technology that has the potential to solve so many problems, but you shouldn't take it unless you know that those are problems for your business.
Okay.
So the way that I frame it is server side is about control. That's what it always boils down to. Control manifests in different ways. For some companies, it's a way to kind of get data back that they've lost, to ad blockers, to regulations, to decline of the third-party cookie, consent banners. Yeah, so it's people see it as a lifeline to get data back. Now, in my opinion, that's a very bad reason to go with it, because it doesn't actually get you anything back. You still have to obey the laws, so you still have the consent banners. Browsers will still prevent information from being moved from one place to the other, so you'll have that as well. Third-party cookies have really very little to do with server-side tagging, so it's not a data retrieval technology. It's not a gap filler. What it gives you is a way to control the data that marketing vendors collect. It gives you a way to transform that data before they get it. It gives a way to enrich the data. So it's more like a transformational process in a place where transformations typically don't happen, which is upstream, like near the user, near the end user. Typically, transformations are done in the database after it's been collected. But that's such a boring story. Like whenever you say it's about control, people are going to doze off and say that's not what we were promised. We were promised it gives us data back. It lets us avoid ad blockers, And it's an uphill battle trying to sell the what I think is the absolute truth. But yeah, it is an interesting piece of technology, not without its baggage. So that's a really good point. But it's also very interesting to see how much of an industry is being built around it. And so if we talk about Google Stack, for example, so Google Server-Side Tag Manager is a very technical tool, and it requires you to deploy it in a cloud or a server farm.
I know. I started two times trying to get into the tag manager, but then I ended up and stay with like content and SEO. So I'm really interested in what you
exactly.
say.
But ironically enough, it's almost one click. Like it's almost. You don't necessarily even have to know anything about the cloud. Of course, the more you want to do it, the more you'll need to understand the technical realities. But it is still technical, and it does require. Let's say the server-side Google Tag Manager absolutely requires you to know how Tag Manager works, but there's no way around it. It uses the same user interface and the same principles, but it's interesting to see how there's a service industry being built around that. So we have companies like State.io that build a system on top of server-side GTM where you no longer have to know about any of this stuff. So it's like
the service is coming with it.
It's a service, There's
just the users.
Yeah, exactly. It's like they host it for you, they run everything for you, and then in addition to that, we now have lots of other server-side kind of tagging stacks coming up, which are much more turnkey and much less require your work. Now, my opinion as a person who gets their living from educating people about the technical stuff, in my opinion, it's not too difficult. Like the technical stuff is not too difficult for somebody who has an incentive to learn it. So if you're working with marketing technologies and you want to try it, then it's not. You just need the right information and the right context and the right education.
And then it's all about motivation.
It's always about motivation. Like nobody's gonna do a good job. Like 121 knows that it's very difficult to teach someone who isn't motivated.
Exactly, yeah.
And so finding that motivation is always the first step. But I found it a pretty good strategy myself to not create problems where they don't exist. So that coming back to your very first question, I don't believe that I should be or anybody should be pushing it as this absolute standard of use. I think it requires an existing need. It requires a requirement to use that technology. But the industry is, I think in a year from now, we'll be in a place where we have so many options to choose from that you don't have to worry about it anymore. You just pay a monthly fee to a company that does all of this for you.
Okay.
What you lose with that is the control, because now you're giving control to a third party. But depending on the company, it might be a very good deal. This, like all tag management, sits across a horizontal plane. It's definitely not bound to a single vertical. It's self-contained, so theoretically, it could be done entirely by the marketing department, even more than Web Google Tag Manager, because Web GTM runs on the website, so you need to interact with the developers at least instantly. But server-side GTM, you can just create your own little service island, your own little server cloud somewhere, and you could do that yourself without bothering anybody else. But in my opinion, you absolutely do need to interact with the company. If your company has a system administrator, service ops, DevOps, cloud engineering team, then you need that cooperation. But as such, I would definitely not. I don't think it's a marketing tool. It's not an IT tool. It's not a cloud tool. It's something weird. That's a funny thing that people think. I understand it from a terminological point of view, and Google made the mistake of calling it Server-Side Tag Manager, even though it's kind of that, but it instantly puts it into a juxtaposition with Client-Side Tag Management. So nothing technically changes in the client. If you want to measure what somebody's doing with their device on a website, you need to run code in that device or that website. So you still need a client-side component. Server-side GTM just happens to work really nicely with client-side Google technologies like the Google Tag and Google Tag Manager, but you still need something running in the client. You don't need to use Google tools. You can use something completely different. Just any kind of tagging system works. So it doesn't replace it. It complements it. Where it gets interesting is in the overlap between server-side tagging and server-side tracking, which is a terrible terminological conundrum. But the point is that server-side tagging is more like a kind of a proxy where you send data to it, then it manipulates it and sends it forward. Server-side trap, and that data can come from anywhere. It can come from the website, from an app, it can come from your refrigerator, your car, any internet-connected device. Whereas server-side tracking specifically is about servers communicating with each other. There's log analysis, CRM sending data directly to a server. So it's very different, but the overlap is there. You can use server-side tagging to also collect data from server-side tracking and from client-side tracking. But I understand it's a
tricky thing. Okay.
And it's exhausting when every single training starts with explaining 2 hours of terminology before you get to the good stuff. That's digital marketing for you. Oh wow, such a lovely question. I would absolutely recommend that they start learning how to code.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Even though everybody's saying KI or AI.
Even more because of that. I think what AI is doing, and I'm going to sound like a really Luddite, old-fashioned person saying this, while it helps our lives immensely, it gives us amazing tools for optimizing our lives, there's a risk of losing focus about the fundamentals. And there's a misconception that coding is just about writing functions and methods and expressions. Coding is about solving problems and designing the world and being creative. And learning to code is so much more than learning syntax. It's about understanding what am I writing, what problems am I solving. It's about creating. It's just like drawing a picture, even though the AI can apparently draw pictures too. But yeah, I would absolutely and luckily my son he's 6 and he's already super into what I do for a living, not the digital analytics stuff, but the coding. Okay. So I would say that, coding is for sure. Prompt engineering probably the next thing.
Okay, thank you very much. And have a nice day here in Munich.
Likewise.
There's a mix.
Thank you.